thanks a lot, Hannah. Appreciate it. Um, yeah, so a couple of federal updates for y'all, as well as some state updates as well. In US health news, we're up to 1.9 infections in July. So we finally got the numbers back, which is around 42% of all the cases since COVID-19 began. This should tell you that the case numbers are rising pretty significantly. And so hopefully there's some mitigation as we move forward. Since last week, there were 500,000 more cases, or 500,000 new cases here in the United States. The rate is slowing, as you see there in the numbers, although even with that, there were still 58,000 new cases yesterday, and the ongoing trend is 1,000 deaths daily. So this is still very much a very serious problem. Due to testing delays, infections for COVID-19 could be anywhere between 2 and 13 times higher. Aside from that, though, there's been some positive news related to ongoing vaccine research, and survey reports are showing that folks concerned about mass transit, actually mass transit hasn't been the cause of any major outbreaks, I'd say so far, but that's just what the studies are showing currently. As a PSA for those of you that are helping people move this month, I know this is kind of like the month for people to move, and I know that there's hurricanes as well. So the PSA is that a wet mask is highly emissive to vapor. So if you are helping people move and you know you're going to get sweaty, or if you're going to be out in the rain with a wet mask, it's probably better to actually keep the mask in your pocket or somewhere that's dry, so that when you're inside, you'll actually have a dry mask available to you. In economic news, 2020 has proven to be, we've discovered with the numbers for the close of the quarter, this has been the worst economic quarter on record, with a 32.9% contraction in GDP. With 2 quarterly declines, we can now officially say that we are in an economic recession. With that, the Republicans put forward a $1.1 trillion bill, vastly lower than the Democrats' bill of $3.4 trillion. And on the next slide, let's go into some details here. Major discrepancies do exist between the Republican-Democrat approach, with not that much middle ground, honestly. The numbers on the Democrat side are significantly higher, with priorities toward investing in social safety nets, state and local government entitlements, and testing programs. Republicans have placed greater attention in a smaller bill that focuses on businesses in terms of funding, as well as liability exemptions for reopening, and then also as funds for funds for schools to reopen in the fall. And then finally, I'm going to put some resources in the chat here. Hopefully it's not too distracting, but you'll see I wanted to just share these with folks. And I'll go through the slides, and if you find them useful, feel free to click through them or save them for another time. But these are kind of state and local resources for you. So in Pennsylvania health news, cases and deaths are kind of leveling off now, which we think is a good thing. In this slide, there's a lot of resources for us to explore, but we're seeing that Governor Wolf is continuing to focus on mental health. I mentioned last week that he put in some funding for first responders, specifically for mental health issues. And then this week, he launched more resources for trauma-informed Pennsylvania. He also recommended mask wearing for children, even preschoolers. So this is kind of a daunting task, I think, to keep any kid that's between the ages of 3 and 5 with a mask on, but that's what has been recommended. There has also been additional COVID awareness resources that are included in the chat, including county-specific metrics and also we're seeing that they're now hiring for contact tracers. They need about 1,000 in Pennsylvania, and they're getting paid between $18 and $22 per hour. COVID mitigation enforcement rules and clarifications have been made. So if you see any violations, or if you see things that concern you, the Commonwealth recommends that you contact any one of 4 groups. They say law enforcement, the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, Department of Health, and Department of Agriculture. So you can tell that each of those is for different types of COVID concerns, but those are for your use. For elderly residents and loved ones, or people who have elderly residents and loved ones, Pennsylvania has completed universal testing for all 693 facilities, nursing home facilities across the Commonwealth. So this includes all staff and every single resident. There's also been an available call center made available to those with questions about long-term care facilities. In Pennsylvania economic support and news, certainly Pennsylvania Career Links is available for all Pennsylvanians seeking work. Also look forward to more guidance related to Pennsylvania school entities, health and safety plans, including from Pittsburgh Public Schools. And finally, in this area anyway, rent and mortgage assistance is available, as I mentioned last week, and some of the resources are there in the chat, and that's through the Department of Health, through their site anyway. In Allegheny County specifically, cases fell around 100 versus last week, although deaths doubled to 20 deaths. If you're looking for a readout on restaurants in Allegheny County that were visited by the task force, I mentioned the COVID task force last week, specifically looking around enforcement. That information is also in the chat, so you can actually check on some of your favorite restaurants and see how they performed. There were most restaurants actually had one or two violations, but overall, I think it was a pretty good showing. So there's also more information in the chat about back to school questions that you might have, as well as an interactive map. So if you want to know about PPS or your own local school district in Western Pennsylvania, I put that there on the slide and in the chat as well. And I guess finally, in closing on the public policy side, Vice President Biden will be picking his own vice president candidate this week. So look forward to that news. This certainly could have implications for this November, and we're less than 100 days out now from the election. I think we're at 91 days. So, just stay tuned and stay vigilant for all of those things. I'll turn it back to the floor. Thanks.